This Sunday has to be the greatest day for any motorsports fan, probably every single year. You have the Monaco Grand Prix in the morning, the Indianapolis 500 in the afternoon, and NASCAR then rounds it all out with the Coke 600, NASCAR's longest race in the evening. And today, on Out of the Groove, we're going to talk about that Coke 600, and I'm going to give you my predictions, who I think will win, who I think the underdogs are, and who will disappoint. So let's get ready to go. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove, the NASCAR show where we talk about all things NASCAR and Cup Series action. This week we're at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Coke 600. Last week was the All-Star race where we played around with a fun new package. This week we're back to the basics. Kevin Harvick has won the last 2 races in a row, 3 if you count the All-Star race, so he's definitely going to be a name to watch out for. Today I'm going to go over, I'll give you some stats, give you some of my predictions, give you some of my thoughts on who the favorites are for this weekend's race. One of the biggest races of the season, one of the crown jewels of NASCAR, the Coca-Cola 600. We've seen some great drivers win this race in years past. This has defined some drivers' careers. This is a big race. Maybe not quite as big as the Daytona 500, but it's a big race. And I think it should be an exciting one to talk about. So let's jump right into it. To start off, as always, I want to start with my big 3. My top 3 picks for the race. I'll then pick my actual winning pick. But for now, let's start with the first name that I think we have to talk about right off the bat is Kevin Harvick. Like I just said, Kevin Harvick's won 2 races in a row, 3 if you count the All-Star race. He's won 5 out of the 12 points-paying races this year, 6 out of the 14 total races he's been in this year. So Kevin Harvick's basically been a god amongst men. Like I joked about earlier this week, Fords have turned out to be unstoppable this season, and Kevin Harvick has been dominant on mile-and-a-halfs. Kevin Harvick already has wins this year at Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Kansas, 3 mile-and-a-half races. So he's been not only tough to beat at just about every track we've gone to, but specifically at the mile-and-a-halfs, throw in the All-Star race from this last week, he's won a lot at mile-and-a-halfs this year. So I just think it's a safe pick to put Kevin Harvick at least in my top 3 here. I think we'd all be silly not to, if you ask me. Moving on, my second driver in my big 3, I gotta go with Martin Truex Jr. I'm basing this pick off of a lot of his past success at mile-and-a-halfs. Remember last year in 2017, Truex won 8 races, 7 of which were at mile-and-a-half tracks. The man just gets them. Not to mention, back in 2016, he dominated the Coke 600 in a way I haven't really seen a race dominated since then. So Martin Truex Jr., he's got some history with this race specifically. He's got history on this type of track. Not to mention this year he had top 5s at Atlanta and Las Vegas, plus he almost won the last race we had at a mile-and-a-half, Kansas. He finished 2nd after a last lap pass, so he almost won that race too. He's been good at mile-and-a-halfs this year, maybe not quite as good as Kevin Harvick, but if you factor in his recent and past success at mile-and-a-halfs or at this track specifically, yeah, Truex is definitely a good guy to have in as one of your top 3 picks for this weekend's race. My final driver in my top 3 for this weekend is Kyle Busch. I know, again, not a super exciting pick, but we typically see the drivers who dominate over the course of an entire season specifically do well on mile-and-a-half racetracks. Mile-and-a-half tracks, if you can get those down, you're typically going to be good and be strong in the playoffs. And Kyle Busch has 3 wins this year, including a win at Texas, which is a mile-and-a-half, somewhat similar to Charlotte in a lot of ways. So Kyle Busch, I think again, you'd be silly to not at least consider him. Kyle Busch has been good just about everywhere we've been. However, there is some reason to perhaps doubt him, I'll give you that. After that 3-race win streak he went on a little while ago, he's struggled a little bit. Since that win streak, he's finished 13th, 35th, and 10th in the 3 races, the 3 points-paying races since then. Plus, he wrecked out of the All-Star race, so I guess that still doesn't do much for momentum. So yeah, Kyle Busch had that streak of, I think, 7 races in a row or something like that, where he finished in the top 3, and I talked to then about how he just seemed unstoppable. Yeah, well, since then, he's been about the most stoppable guy out there. He's not finished well since then. So there is reason there to be hesitant. But I think Kyle Busch, he has not won a points-paying race at Charlotte. That is another important thing to factor in. But Kyle Busch, he has a knack for rising to the occasion at times, and I think he's been one of Kevin Harvick, if not Kevin Harvick's top competitor this season. And I think in a long race like Charlotte, like the Coke 600 is, I expect Kyle Busch to understand the car, understand the race, understand the stakes, and manage it like the skilled veteran driver he is. So Kyle Busch is my 3rd driver in my top 3. As for my actual pick for the race, sometimes I feel like I should save this for the end of these videos, but since I just finished talking about the top 3, you know it's going to be one of those drivers, so I'm going to make it now. My pick for this weekend is Kevin Harvick. I'm playing it safe, I know. Basically, you could take Harvick or the field. I think it's 50-50 who wins this weekend, to be honest. But Harvick's safe pick for all the reasons I just gave earlier. I just think he's been so dominant. I mean, he can easily lose, don't get me wrong, But if you're telling me which driver in the field has the best chance of winning, it's Kevin Harvick by a long shot. So there you have it. Now for one of my favorite segments on these shows, the top underdogs. These are drivers who probably don't, you don't think of right off the top of your head when you think favorites or you think of the dominant cars. Drivers who are maybe a little further back there in points that have had good moments but maybe haven't won a whole lot lately. That's who I'm considering when I'm talking about underdogs. My first underdog, and honestly probably my second, I'd honestly pick him probably as one of my top 2 or 3 picks for this race, but I'm putting him as an underdog. The top underdog I'm putting as, I'm giving it to Ryan Blaney. He's driving for Team Penske. He's been pretty good at mile and a halfs this year. He's been fairly solid throughout this season. He's been a good, consistent team and driver. And this is a race that I think really favors good, consistent drivers. And that's who I think Ryan Blaney is. So I'm giving Ryan Blaney the nod there. And you look this year, he was 5th at Las Vegas and 5th at Texas. So he's been strong at mile and a halfs this year. I'm not picking him to win the race. That's obviously going to go to Harvick. But I think Blaney's definitely a good top 5 pick for sure. I've got a good feeling about him. What can I say? My second underdog pick is Erik Jones. I think I've had Erik Jones on here as an underdog pick a couple of different times, but after he ran so well at Texas earlier this year and finished in the top 5, I think it'd be a shame for me to leave Erik Jones out of at least one of the honorable mention underdog picks for this weekend. Texas and Charlotte, especially since Texas was repaved and reconfigured, they're similar but not as similar as they used to be. But that being said, a mile and a half for Erik Jones where he finished 4th and led a lot of laps at, that was Texas. Charlotte is similar in a lot of ways, so I expect decent things from Erik Jones. Not to mention, he's finished in the top 11 at every other mile and a half race this season. He'd been on a pretty shaky stretch since that good run at Texas. However, in the last points race at Kansas, he did finish 7th, and that's a mile and a half racetrack, so maybe things are starting to turn back around for Erik Jones. Maybe, if nothing else, they do have the mile and a half package figured out. So I think Erik Jones, a good top 10 pick, possibly a top 5 pick for this race. I think he's solid. Good underdog. My last underdog pick, I'm keeping it in the Toyota JGR family, Daniel Suarez. And this one's a little bit of a reach because if I look at his recent history at mile and a halfs, they're not super great. Although to be fair, he's been involved in several accidents at mile and a halfs this year. Some of them have not been even of his own doing, just been wrong place, wrong time. So like I've said a lot about Suarez this year, he's kind of had a lot of finishes that maybe aren't super representative of how good or how he actually ran in the race. But for Daniel Suarez, this is a pure gut feeling for me because he's coming off one of the most impressive weekends I've seen in his career where he won a stage in the All-Star Open race and then finished second, a narrow second place to Kevin Harvick in the All-Star race. Daniel Suarez had a great race weekend, and I know we're running a very different package. That was a completely unique package for that All-Star race, but it's the same track. You gotta believe there's at least some momentum there for Daniel Suarez. He's made a lot of gains, especially since the beginning of his rookie season last year. Suarez, he's not a pick to win, but I expect him to run top 10. Plus, I'm filming this after first practice here on Thursday. He was pretty good in first practice. I don't remember where he was on the speed chart, but I want to say he was 6th or 7th or 8th on the speed chart. So Daniel Suarez was decent in practice. I expect him to run around there probably during the race. So Suarez, another good underdog pick. You never know. Play some strategy. Could contend for his first win. It'd be cool to see. So last but not least, to wrap up the show, maybe I should change the order because I hate ending the show on a down note, but I gotta go with my biggest potential disappointment for this weekend's race. And this week, it's consistent with what I've been doing this season, but I gotta go with another Hendrick Motorsports driver, although it's not gonna be Jimmy Johnson this week. Jimmy Johnson's run a little bit better recent weeks. He's up to like 13th or so in points, so he's been running a little bit better. I'm not gonna hit on Jimmy Johnson too bad this week. But it is another Hendrick driver. I'm going to go with Chase Elliott. I know there's a lot of Chase Elliott fans, but hear me out. I got a lot of high hopes for Chase Elliott for this race. That's why I'm going to say he's a disappointment, because I just don't think he's going to live up to them. I want to look at some of Chase Elliott's finishes this year at mile and a half versus last year at mile and a half. This year, he was 10th at Atlanta, 11th at Texas, and 12th at Kansas. Those aren't bad races or bad finishes, but when you're Chase Elliott, who almost made the Final Four last season, you expect to run a little better than that, especially at your typical mile and a half racetrack. But still, 10th, 11th, 12th isn't terrible. It's at least consistent, if nothing else. But if we compare this to last year, 2017, Chase Elliott had a lot more top 5, top 10 finishes, especially at mile and a half. He finished 2nd at Charlotte in the fall last year. Last time we were here, yeah, top 5 finish for Chase Elliott, almost won the race. So when I just look at how well he ran at mile and a half in intermediate tracks in 2017, and I compare with the more mediocre runs we've seen in 2018, I just tend to think there's no way he's going to live up to what we saw last year when it comes to Charlotte. I think he'll run probably around 8th to 12th, which isn't horrible, but by Chase Elliott standards, given how well he's done early in his career so far, you'd hope for him to run a little better than that. So that's why I'm going to put him as a big disappointment. I don't expect him to run 20th or 15th. I just expect 8th to 12th. So there you have it. The top 3 drivers, my pick Kevin Harvick, top 3 underdogs, and then the potentially biggest disappointment. So that's guess I checked everything off the list. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my Coca-Cola 600 predictions. Let me know what you think down below, who you think will win, all that stuff. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for watching, of course, and subscribe for more NASCAR videos throughout the season. If you missed it, 2 days ago I uploaded a brand new Doubly Cup Series NASCAR stop motion race. I know a lot of you guys, if you've been following me for a long time, I used to make a lot of stop motions. Haven't been making them as much lately, but I'm gonna start making some more this summer, and I started off with a little warm-up race that I uploaded a couple days ago. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. I'll put a link for that in the description. You can sponsor the show like these great people, like Michael Harrison, official Out of the Groove sponsor. Gonna keep shouting this guy out. You can also have your name on this corner of the screen at the end of these episodes. I really appreciate the support from you guys. I appreciate the support from you guys watching, and I appreciate y'all checking out that link down below. Follow me on Twitter at Dex Racing. Enough with the shout outs, Eric. I'm done. But thanks for watching, everybody. See you guys after Sunday. Sunday's gonna be a wild race. A lot of racing, Indy 500, Coke 600, all that stuff. I'll be back next week talking about the Coke 600. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. I forgot it's Memorial Day weekend. So it's gonna be a great weekend. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys when it's over. Have a good one, everybody.